This is David Murphy, president at Marshfield Medical Center Credit Union and host of the See You at the Top podcast. I'm here to empower the next generation of credit union leaders with insights and confidence. Join industry pioneers as they share their stories and leadership advice to fuel the dreams of future leaders. In today's episode, we hear from Heather Ristow, Senior VP and Chief Experience Officer at Corporate Central Credit Union. This was a special episode to record, as we recorded at the latest Wisconsin Credit Union League Young Professionals Boot Camp held in True Stages Lighthouse in Madison, Wisconsin. Heather has spent much of her career in leadership positions and has served in multiple roles throughout her time in the industry. We go way back to when the Young Professionals Network first began in Wisconsin and have grown up together in our careers. It's been a pleasure growing alongside Heather, and I'm proud of where she is today. Enjoy this special episode with my friend Heather Ristow.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 5, See You at the Top podcast. I'm your host, David Murphy, president at Marshfield Medical Center Credit Union. Today is a special episode. We're here at True Stages Lighthouse. We're joining the Young Professional Network and their boot camp here for the Wisconsin Credit Union League. And I'm honored to be joined by a fellow former YP that I've known for several years, Heather Ristow. Heather is the Senior VP and Chief Experience Officer at Corporate Central Credit Union. And I really appreciate you joining today.
Yeah, excited to be here.
So we're going to jump right in to question number 1. So tell me about your story, your journey through the credit union space and your career and how you got to where you're at today.
Yeah, it could take a long time and it kind of dates me. But, back in 2003 is when I got my start into credit unions. And at the time I was in high school. I was, this teenager that was highly focused on tennis and nothing more. Like I was really excited for high school sports and going on to college and stuff. And I worked at this little knick-knack shop at a mall, and the store was going through this closure at the time. And one of the people that I worked with at this little shop part-time was like, Heather, the store is closing. What are you going to do next? What are you going to do with life? I never really had thought about it. It was just a job at that point. And I ended up, I think I answered, focus on tennis, and then I'll figure it out once I go to college, and I'll figure out where that next kind of position is going to be. Well, that same gal, she's like, you should come work for me at the credit union. And I'm scratching my head like, what the heck is that? And so the rest is kind of history, but she told me about this awesome place to work. It was Fort Community Credit Union at the time, and it was in Jefferson, Wisconsin, where I went to high school. And I remember going home to ask my mom, like, Mom, should I work at this credit union? She's like, yeah, you like people, you like community stuff. I think this would be a good fit. And so, yeah, I started there in 2003 and then was at that shop for 5 years. Loved it. Did go to college during that time locally. And in that 5-year period, I did not graduate college in 4 years. I graduated in 5 because I was full-time at the credit union. I loved it so much that it was kind of my college job. And I worked 30 to 35 hours a week at the credit union while taking classes around that schedule. And it was just the right kind of career for me. It was clear that they made great community impact, that they cared about their people, their employees, and it was just such a unique collaborative model that, again, I hadn't been exposed to much employment, but I thought it was so critical for what the community needed. So that's kind of how I started. And then career progression-wise, it just kind of took off after I got my degree. Initially, I wanted to be a kindergarten teacher. So I was going to school when I first started at the credit union to be a kindergarten teacher. And probably within 6 months, I would say, after starting at the credit union, I changed my degree to finance and business because I wanted to do something with credit unions. I knew that was my passion or my purpose. And so I graduated with a degree in finance, and it was 2008 timeframe. And that's when that credit union that I was at, Fort Community, they were so encouraging. They were a great employer that helped me kind of find that next big kid job. They're like, you should do, something with more people or the credit industry. And so they had suggested a position for me at Corporate Central Credit Union, who's actually my current employer. And at the time it was a relationship development officer role that was open. So I applied and got the job and ended up traveling the state of Wisconsin over and over again for about 3 years. I was there and met with hundreds of credit unions. At the time, there were quite a few credit unions in the state of Wisconsin. talking about operations, finance, and it was an interesting time to work in corporates and just credit unions in general. 2008 kind of peaked that financial crisis that we all remember. So it was an interesting time, a lot of learning, and a lot of credit unions needed help. They were struggling in new ways that they had never seen before. So I was there for 3 years, and then a small credit union in Madison, St. Mary's and Affiliates, were going through some operational changes and needed a vice president of operations to help out for at least a period of time, and asked if I would fill that position for them. I began to know credit unions in the state really well and understand their intricacies. Mm-hmm. So this was one of them that was like, hey, you know us already. Can you join? So I was there for a short period, helped that credit union out and had a blast and learned a ton. Who are my ACH kind of operators in here? Anybody behind the scenes? Okay. That was like a big piece of what I did back then, is like learn all of the things about payments and all the back office stuff that I had not been exposed to before. And so after that period at St. Mary's, I went on to being a director of operations at Heritage Credit Union, which was kind of a medium-sized credit union in Madison, Wisconsin. And really unique shop, a lot of branches, and they hired me on in this position to manage their 9 office locations throughout the state of Wisconsin and Illinois. Okay. So really different exposure than I'd had before too. And I was young. I think I was 26, something like that. So walking into a role like that was a lot. It was intimidating, but it was awesome. And it had so many really great people to thank for kind of helping shape what that role was. Okay, I told you this was going to be long. So we're getting there.
You're good.
So I was at Heritage for about 11 years in many different positions, but started as that director of operations. Moved into vice president of sales and development, where I really focused a lot on big projects, taking something from A to all the way to Z and get it implemented throughout the whole organization or within our entire membership. And then also focused on kind of the sales efforts, the lending teams, the MSR teams, everyone that had something that they wanted to give back to our members or kind of shape where Heritage was going. So I did that for like a year and a half. And then the majority of my time at Heritage was chief operating officer. So I moved into that role. Can't remember the exact time frame, but was in that role for about 7.5 years, where I just kind of took that operational side, and it kept, elevating to something even bigger still with more and more teams, and loved it. I had my hands in all the honey pots. It was fun to kind of put a mark on so many things with training and development and sales still and project strategy, all that stuff. So then from there, and in 2021, we were going through a merger with Connexus Credit Union out of the Wausau, Wisconsin area, which is where Heritage kind of now is. It's become Connexus Credit Union. So at that time, our CEO was retiring at Heritage, and I was asked to take on the market president role for the merger. So taking, 130 of our employees at Heritage and kind of immersing them into Connexus, a new credit union that we hadn't had much exposure to, but of course new, which was my role for that period of time during the merger itself. And it was really fun. Again, lots of great learning experiences and a lot of laughing, a lot of crying. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff going on in a merger. It's a big one. And then I was there with Connexus for a while, a little over a year and a half, and moved into a different role once the merger was complete, as the SVP of marketing. And Connexus is a unique shop. They're nationwide, so marketing nationwide is tricky. And again, lots of education, awesome team. They have like 27 people on their marketing team, and they crush it. It's a great group. So got to get that kind of fun exposure. And then most recently, and where I am now, Corporate Central Credit Union, so the credit union's credit union, was looking for a way to kind of broaden and enhance or improve their overall member experience. So a member to Corporate Central Credit Union is a credit union. And we have tons of them in Wisconsin, Illinois, everywhere across the nation. So that's where I am now, Chief Experience Officer, and get to work really closely with the marketing team and the member services team, senior team. It's never a dull day, a lot of fun. And I don't know, you never picture kind of where your journey is going to take you, but it's the people that you meet along the way that find, opportunities that they think fit you, and kind of roll the dice and say, yeah, I guess this does work for me. So that's kind of my journey, where I started and where I'm sitting today.
Well, it speaks to the culture at Corporate Central because of the fact that you've gone back. I know Chris Felton went back and took over as CEO several years ago. So obviously there must be doing something right.
Yep. We call ourselves retreads. There's a lot of retreads at Corporate Central. There's, I mean, I don't know, probably 20 people that have been there or started there and then had some kind of transition in their career that somehow led them back, and it's a fun place to be.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So you highlighted that you've worked in several leadership roles throughout your time in the credit union space. When did you know that you were ready to take on a leadership role?
I don't think there was any pivotal moment that just hit me. If I had to peg something or some specific circumstance, I do think it was when I started at corporate. So when I started, the Great Recession wasn't really happening yet, but it was kind of evolving. It was picking up. And as you can imagine, I'm having these meetings with, I don't know, hundreds of credit union CEOs, COOs, chief financial officers, and they're going through the scariest time that they've ever had in their career. So I did have an opportunity to watch and learn and see how really, really, really great leaders respond to something that's really, really challenging, or find opportunities that maybe they wouldn't be able to, have dreamt up, knowing that the Great Recession was not something that anyone could plan for. So I feel like I learned a lot about what good leadership looked like during that time, because it was very evident when you saw that. And so I naturally started gravitating towards some leadership at that point. And during that time too, I started getting really involved in young professional stuff at the kind of tail end of my career. And I saw what these other young people in the industry were wanting to do and kind of what passions they had. And so I think it started fueling a little bit of it for me. But yeah, I would say it was probably during that period of time watching it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you ever at any point feel like you were ready to jump into a leadership role?
No, I'm still trying to figure that out. Honestly, every single day I question myself.
Yeah.
It's still, and I shouldn't, because it's been fine. It's been a good career and I love the people that I get to work with, but it's difficult to be a leader. You get a lot of weird situations placed on you, things that you can't, plan for. And I think you just have to kind of roll with it and say, maybe I'm ready, maybe I'm not, but somebody has to do something with this. So yeah, I don't know if I ever really quite have felt ready or known that I'm ready to take it on. But I will say the teams that I've worked with have kind of proven it doesn't matter how ready I am. It matters how well we work together to figure something out. And so I'm no longer afraid of it. I'm still just a little shocked by it that I'm, leading some of these awesome people.
Yeah. The term out there is imposter syndrome. And I feel that quite often to myself, because there's situations you find yourself in as a leader that there's no textbook out there that you take or read during college that is going to prepare you for a certain situation. But at the end of the day, I think the key takeaway from that is that even leaders who have been doing it for whether it's been 6 months or 6 years or probably not 60 years, but for a few decades, you are going to find yourself in situations where you feel like you're not fully prepared to handle that situation. So for me, the tip from that is don't let that be the sole reason that stops you from going after a leadership opportunity, because everyone's going to feel the same way, at the end of the day. Yep,
totally agree. And you're right. Even the, CEOs that are nearing retirement, every day they have something that they may not have ever experienced in the 36 years that they, have been in that position. So you just you wing it, just like we do with most things, right?
Pretty much. Yeah. I mean, it's the old cliche, you're always learning something new every day.
Yeah,
for sure.
True.
Was there anything that you did specifically to prepare yourself for a leadership position?
Yes. I mean, I do consider myself that forever learner. I jump into reading different books or articles or going to get certain certifications. I like to really understand the guts of what I'm doing or my team is doing in order to make really good decisions on it. So I'm a learner. And back in 2012, I think it was, I had just started at Heritage and was really, really graciously offered to go to CUNA Management School. And that was a big turning point for me too, with that leadership in mind. I was already leading a team, but I didn't have, I think, the fundamentals as much as I had wanted to. So I went through CUNA Management School. It's a 3-year program from in Madison that's put on by America's Credit Unions now.
Yeah.
And that was excellent. The networking is exceptional. I still talk to my CUNA Management School class, and we graduated in 2015 nearly every day. Like, we are so connected and share things with each other, whether it be personal stuff or like, hey, work situation, I've got this going on. So just that resource alone of the people that, you know, you trust and you've done this really, really awesome work with, that was huge. And then the coursework that they put you through, it really does prep you for not just leadership, but just decision making, execution, strategy planning, things like that. So can't say enough great things about that. And then in addition to, there's, again, other certifications that have kind of helped along the way, but I'll go back to the YP group where, you know, those network connections that you end up making and the people that are like-minded or in the same types of roles that you are, hugely resourceful and willing to help. And again, it goes back to why this industry is so great is we collaborate. You know, we're not afraid to talk to each other about what works, you know. So I think, you know, in the role that I am now, I felt really prepared to go into because I'd had, you know, 20 years of experience and all kinds of, people that were kind of helping pave that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one, you know, you hit it on the head as far as the unique circumstance that we find ourselves in as credit unions is the fact that we are willing to sit in a room. There's how many credit unions that are represented here today. And the fact that we're not at each other's throats trying to put each other out of business, that we're here to actually grow for one single cause, which is to become better professionals. I guess two single causes. Yeah. Become better professionals, but better serve your members at the end of the day. And so take advantage of that. Neither of us would be in our positions if it wasn't for the ability to rely on those in our network, whether it is young professionals, you talk about CUNA Management School, all the different opportunities that you are able to take advantage of to get out there and meet new people. That's going to help you get you to places that you may not feel that you are well prepared for, you know, at this point in time. And so you touched on it a little bit, but when you look back at your journey to where you're at today, is there anyone specific that like really helped you get to this spot?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned the gal in the little country store, the mall that was closing. Her name's Lisa, Lisa Wolfram. She works at Heartland Credit Union. So not to name drop, but I have to because she's been a mentor of mine for 20 plus years. She's the one that kind of changed my life. You know, she put this idea in my head that I should come work for her at the credit union. And she was my boss for 5 years during that time. If she hadn't asked me, I don't think I ever would have found this industry. So she has been huge. We're still extremely close today. And we've kind of followed each other in our careers. So I left Fort Community to go to Corporate Central. And then I think it was like 4 or 5 months after I left Corporate Central to go on and help out at St. Mary's Credit Union, Lisa took my role at Corporate Central. So we kind of started going in this trend where we wanted to be where each other was at. Yeah. And then a few years later, maybe 5 or 6 years after she was in that role, she came back and worked with me at Heritage too. So we got to work together for another handful of years, and then it connects us together. So it's kind of funny how one person, A, can change your life, but B, you have this polarizing, you know, opportunity to stay super connected because they've become so important. So she is up there, and I owe her a ton because she has always been the wind behind my sails. And I would say Chris Felton, our CEO at Corporate Central, he, even after I left corporate, it's hard to leave a position, especially one that you really, really love. He'd always give me a hard time for leaving and say, you're going to hate that commute into Madison. And it wasn't fun, but made it through. But he was the strongest mentor that I had during that time. And there was a lot of life changes, you know, happening for me then. I was getting married, you know, eventually having kids. And he was always that person that I could call up or email literally one letter to. I would send him the letter G, he would send me the letter J. And we'd be like, we got to connect. We got to have, you know, lunch or something. All those little, you know, inside jokes. Yeah. And so we would have, you know, breakfast or dinner or whatever at events that we were at the same time. And staying connected and having somebody that I could confide in when things were getting tough with work, or if things were going really well and I needed some advice on career, he was always there. And he was always putting this little carrot out there, like, when are you going to come back, you know, to work at Corporate Central? And I think it was 7 years it took for me to finally make the trip back, but I'm really happy that I did. So yeah, I would say that he has been huge and kind of changed not just my career, but my approach to leadership, my approach to relationships with our members. I would always joke with him that I wanted to like secretly record him speaking because he did such a good job.
Yeah,
and
he's a good speaker.
When there's people like that you're that fixated on or gravitate towards the way that they interact with others, you don't forget it. So he's been awesome. And then there's a ton more. You're one. Dave and I spent some time kind of in the infancy stages of the Young Professionals Network. There was, 2011? There's 20 of us in the state. So this room is already more than when the YP group or the network really first started. And we were engaged, I would say, but we didn't know how and what engagement looked like. So I think back to that original group of 20 of us, and then an even smaller group when we were on the advisory board, when everything was just first kicking off with YPs. We are all still very, very tight. Some of them don't even work in credit unions anymore, and we are still so connected as people. I think that's huge, and those relationships have definitely strengthened kind of my career path and all of those things. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, to me, what your answer does is it emphasizes the point that you should never burn bridges first and foremost, because you don't know someone who you may move on from a position or it may not work out, but they may still serve some purpose in your career or your life just in general. But then also that it doesn't have to be someone at your organization. It can be someone outside of your organization, that it can be a peer or it can be someone who is older, has more experience than you. It doesn't matter. It's just someone that you can go to and confide in, ultimately is really key to help you propel you forward.
Well, I think it's being vulnerable too. Like, it's okay to admit when there's things that are difficult, and most likely the person that you're trusting to share with has probably been through something similar, right? Or wants to help because they've, been through it. So yeah, I agree.
Absolutely. Yeah. When you look back at all the people that have helped you throughout your career, is there one piece of advice that you could point to that really changed your career? And I know you mentioned Lisa, so I don't know if she gave you some nugget, but
yeah, I mean, we goofed around so much when I first started in credit unions. I was the biggest practical prankster or joker in our branch. I've told stories to some of the people in this room before too. So I was a teller, on the front line for a long time, and we would do these crazy shenanigans to prank our boss, our branch manager. And I remember Lisa one day, she's laughing at the goofy stuff that we were doing. You had to have fun at work, right? And she said something, and it was, Heather, just don't ever change. Please don't ever change this side of you. She's like, always be authentic and be yourself. And I stuck on to that. And she still reminds me when we were at Heritage, I have a lot of board interaction and interaction with other senior team leaders. And what you get is what you get. I am the same person in this room as I am in a boardroom, as I am, talking with members. You have to be who you are, or you're going to be miserable in your job or miserable in some part of your life. So I have not changed. I have that. I still like pulling pranks on people. Sorry for my current, coworkers in the room, because you're bound to get one at some point. So it's just have fun, be authentic, and it's turned out just fine. It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I haven't been on the receiving end of those that I know of.
Yeah,
but
not yet.
Not yet.
We can always play what are the odds.
There's always time. Oh gosh, no thanks. Talk about some of the challenges that you faced along your journey.
Oh my God. So there's a lot. Being in this for, almost 21 years. Actually, it is 21 years. Oh my gosh. That goes by fast. From in an operational type of role, there's so much that hits your desk that you, again, can't prepare for. Between robberies or having to let your first employee go, that was really, really hard to have to go through a termination of someone else. I'm a positive person with all of this hope and dreams that I can coach anyone. And when that can't happen, that is a hard thing for a leader to have to do, especially because you develop relationships with people.
Yeah.
To other circumstances that, you can't possibly fathom how they happened or how they got there. Socioeconomic issues that your branches are facing. I think the biggest thing is knowing that you have support, you have a team around you when those challenges get really, really escalated, and kind of trusting your gut, to make sure that you're doing the right thing when you are faced with a challenge. But yeah, leadership is hard. People are complex, and you just kind of never know what's going to be knocking at your door. Unfortunately, we at Heritage, we had quite a few branches, like I mentioned, and there were a lot of robbery situations. And when you're in that moment, again, you went to that question, like, how do you know you're prepared as a leader? You can't possibly prepare for that. And to go talk to, an employee that has just been through something so traumatic or spotlighted even on the national or worldwide news. We had a crazy situation years ago.
Did.
Talking to crisis management, helpful people. It's know your resources, know you have this community of people that are there to help, I think is kind of where I end up going and collaborating more with credit unions. So
yeah, absolutely.
It's tricky. Every single day there's something new.
Yeah, you touched on it a little bit, but during those challenging times, from where do you seek inspiration or confidence?
I feel like it's different today than maybe it was when I first became a leader. I don't know why, but I have 2 kids, Fiona and Owen.
If you don't know how you got 2 kids,
I
then
know.
we got to have a different conversation.
Okay, probably should have changed the preface to that. But
anyways, continue.
no, but see, this is the good thing.
You know.
But no, honestly, like they are a huge inspiration. Like knowing that I'm doing something that they would be proud of or that they would find, an inspiration for themselves. I mean, they know a lot about credit unions, and I think that there's a reason for that. It's because I look to family, to friends, to my network of, colleagues, to the league. I mean, there's so many great resources and great people that thankfully inspiration is all around us in this movement. But I would say, primarily, I go to my family, go to my kids, and remember why I'm doing the things that I'm doing.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people look on that, and I would say find a greater purpose for taking on leadership, because as you touched on, it is difficult to be a leader.
Yeah.
And it's getting more and more difficult as times are changing and just adapting and keeping up. So make sure that you find that existential purpose, that continues to drive you, I would say.
Yeah, and don't forget those moments. Like there's little moments why I feel like I kind of look to my kids. I remember my daughter, she was maybe 2.5 at the time. She was underneath her little like kid table and she's drawing all these things and she's counting stuff. I go, what are you doing down there? She's like, I'm just working at my credit union. Like just doing my credit union stuff. I got to help people. We have a budget. And so she's using some of the same like terms and language. Yeah. And it was heartwarming to know that, she has inspiration because of what mom talks about and is so passionate about. So,
and she actually pays attention to you too.
Yeah, but too much sometimes.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
So you touched on it a little bit at the beginning, but if you want to elaborate on it, you can. Otherwise, you can just answer the second part of this question. But what drew you into the industry? And then more importantly, what kept you here?
Yeah, I mean, Lisa is kind of that sole person that got me in, but there are a ton of reasons why I'm still here, and I'm probably never going to leave. My claws are in. I would say the good that we do collectively. It's interesting to work at a credit union for a credit union because you get to see the good that all of our members are doing. And we're very tapped into, the amazing things that happen throughout the entire nation with our members. But it's just good people doing good things for communities that need it. And I do think that that's what's keeping me here. I don't know where else I could go and collaborate with a group that's as awesome as credit union people. So, yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
So we'll get you out of the conversation here with this last question. Okay. So we've got a group of young professionals in front of us. And again, some of them are starting their careers. So if you could give them one piece of advice to get them started along their journey, what would you share with them?
I mean, I think the advice Lisa gave is great. So be authentic, but I'm going to not do one, I'll do 2.
Okay.
I once was at a filing event and somebody said, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And that was kind of life-changing too. I think everyone should always surround themselves with somebody that kind of drives them to be better still or helps them learn kind of new things or get exposed to things that they might have no knowledge of.
Yeah.
And I exercise that rule pretty often. Every room I'm in at my current job, I am not the smartest person in that room. There are so many smart people that are doing awesome things that I couldn't even write a procedure for. They're just so talented. And I think if you keep that mantra, you surround yourself with these really, really great people, you are going to go places. So that would be my advice.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Be dumb. Be the dumb person in the room.
Well, I got that down pad every day.
Yeah.
For crying out loud. Well, thank you for doing this, for taking the opportunity to answer the questions, have the conversation, share your insights with this group, and then with our listeners as well. I want to thank the Wisconsin Credit Union League for allowing us to record this and to share this information out. And I hope that everyone who listens to this episode, whether you're here in person or listening to it online, I hope that you get one piece of advice that you can take away from that. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think this is so awesome what you're doing, and will hopefully help a large group of young professionals keep their...
That's the hope.
Yeah.
So thanks.
Awesome. Thanks.